We interrupt your Timberwolves euphoria to remind you that the Twins stink right now. It's the Locked On Twins postcast.
You are Locked On Twins postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You might be grateful right about now if you're a Comcast user that you can't get the Twins games because they have lost another, and the bottom, this might be the bottom for Minnesota during this current losing streak. They lose 12-3 to the Washington Nationals. The losing skid is at 7. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Welcome in. It's the Locked On Twins postcast. I'm keeping the seat warm for Luke Inman, who is on his Italian vacation. We'll welcome him back in 3 or 4 days. CJ Baumgartner, zone coverage writer, contributor, is with us tonight to break down a 9-run loss for the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez shelled, possibly his worst start as a Minnesota Twin. We'll get into that. His bad night. The offense scored 3, which is actually good for the way they've been hitting lately, but still not good enough. We'll talk about just the volatility of this Twins team that CJ, not a lot of people are talking about right now because A, they can't watch the games. B, the Minnesota Timberwolves have stolen the headlines. They have stolen the month of May, which is usually reserved for the Twins. Usually people turn the page after basketball season, hockey season, and they start getting focused on baseball in the month of May. For once, they don't have to do that. So this 7-game losing streak's flying under the radar, but it's bad baseball right now. And it's just a complete 180 from a 17-20 stretch not that long ago that had them toward the top of the Central, and now they're 6 games back, 6.5 actually, with the loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we talked about before we hit record, right? Like they won 17 out of 20. It felt like everything was going well. And then they play the New York Yankees and then things just unravel as in typical Minnesota Twins fashion. It feels like not only are they losing games, they're not scoring a lot of runs. And not only are they not scoring a lot of runs, your ace has had 2 blowups in a row, which is just not a sign of a ball club that's clicking on all cylinders. It's insane how this thing just stopped dead in its tracks when the Yankees came to town.
Yeah, it's always the Yankees are the source of the angst. And I think we expected some regression to the mean. The offense was producing at a pretty ridiculous clip during the 12-game winning streak and even beyond that. 2 of those losses during the 17 out of 20 were kind of blown games very late. I mean, they could have won 19 out of 20 quite easily, but mixed in there, they had a 16-run game, they had an 11-run game, a 10-run game. I mean, they were scoring double digits. We knew the offense couldn't keep that up. But the slumping offense sandwich that they've served us with the terrible start, what they're doing right now, sandwiched around a ludicrous stretch where they were one of the best in baseball. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And it's... I was just pulling up some stats before we started here, and the Twins were obviously one of the best offenses over that stretch where they won 17 out of 20. Since then, they've scored 1.7 runs a game, counting today's loss. Dead last in baseball. They're 28th in hits. They're dead last in runs scored. It's fascinating just how much this is just stopped all of a sudden. And it's not just about the pitching. I know the Yankees have a good pitching staff, and obviously Cleveland is known for their pitching, but the Twins had the Boston Red Sox and the Seattle Mariners, who were 2 of the better pitching staffs in town, and it felt like all they did was hit them around the ballpark, and now it feels like it's tough just even putting multiple guys on base.
Mm-hmm. I've got the run totals for the Twins the last 7 games. It's not hard to add up. It's not hard to even just do the mental math on figuring out that average because they've scored 1, 0, 0, 2, 4, explosion there in the 4, 2, and 3. That's a slump. That's a certifiable slump with a run average of just over 1.7 runs per game. Tonight they ran into Mitchell Parker, who is actually, you probably have never heard of him. He's actually been quite good for the Nationals this year. Nothing but quality starts, really. And he put together another one tonight. Carlos Correa tagged him for a 2-run home run. That was really the only big swing for the Twins, who did take the first lead on kind of a fluky, weird bounce double by Kyle Farmer. The Nationals rattled off the next 7. They did it against Pablo Lopez. They led the game 7-1, then 7-3, then 10-3, then 12-3, and they ran away in this thing. 12 runs, 14 hits for the Nationals against the Twins pitching staff. So Pablo, last time you mentioned he got shelled, and he kind of got away with it. He gave up 10 hits, but he only gave up 3 runs in that game against New York. Tonight, he paid for it. Gives up 7 runs in 5 innings, which if you look through his box scores as a Minnesota Twin, that is the most runs he's given up in the shortest amount of time in 5 innings. So objectively, his worst start as a Minnesota Twin tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you talked about, he got away with it the last time with some of those hits, and it always feels like Pablo Lopez, or I should say last year, it felt like this as well. This is about the part of the year where he hit a little bit of a slump, and he had kind of about a 3-4 start stretch where he just wondered if things looked off, and then he kind of picked things up later in the season. But right now, and it's not so much the top of the order, although eventually it ended up being that way. It's always felt like with Pablo Lopez, when things are going wrong for him, it's not the top of the order. He can get those guys at the top of the lineup. It's the 7, 8, 9 hitters that always are those rally starters. They're always the guys who are putting hits together. And then that big, I can't remember what inning it was, but when the Nationals really blew the game open, it started with a Joey Gallo single, which is he hits like 3 of them a year. So you just know you're not going to win the game when that happens. And allowing hits to the bottom of the lineup, got the top of the lineup. Then once it kind of got towards that middle to bottom part, ran into trouble again. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just, he's trying to be too cute, or maybe if he's just being a little too direct with the bottom of the lineup, thinking he can just overpower him. I haven't looked into that too much, but I mean, it just feels like when he's off, he can't get the bottom of the lineup. And that as a pitcher is not a great sign.
The baseball savant analytics on Lopez would indicate that the breaking ball is not working the way it should, and as a result, he's getting barreled up too frequently. Those are what the numbers would suggest. Fastball's fine, breaking stuff, off-speed stuff not working for Pablo. You mentioned last year, he got shelled out of the All-Star break. First start of the All-Star break, gave up 7 runs in 5 2/3 innings. That might have been one of his worst starts as a Twin as well. After that wake-up call, he flipped a switch, and he was brilliant the rest of the year and into the playoffs. I think that Twins fans expected him to leverage what he did in the second half of last year, and that would be the new normal. Progress is not always linear in sports. I'll say it a billion times that there are going to be regressions, especially when you're dealing with pitching, where the slightest hand adjustment, foot adjustment, elbow slot angle can affect your velocity and can affect how teams are hitting you. So right now we're kind of getting like middle to early of last year Pablo, and I still think he can pull out of it. But when your ace is not a stopper and you're in a 6-game losing streak, that's how long losing streaks develop, is when you don't have a guy that can come out and put an end to the misery, right?
Right, exactly. And it feels like, the last 2 times you've really needed Lopez to be that stopper. And this one for sure. But whether it's him, whether it's Ryan, whether it's Ober, all guys who you kind of expect to give you a quality outing just haven't been able to do it. And Lopez should be that guy. He is the number 1 undisputed ace. And when he comes in there and, against the team in the Nationals that have seen him a little bit from Miami, but that Nationals team probably isn't the same that he's faced when he pitched for the Marlins. It's a much different team. But he's just not able to get it done. And when, like you talked about, your ace can't do it, it's not great. And it's when the Twins struggled a couple of years ago with Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan, it felt like if those 2 guys didn't get wins on their turn in the rotation, things kind of had the ability to snowball. And this rotation is better than what it was a couple of years ago. But again, just setting that tone, when you throw your ace into a team against Washington that's lost 5 in a row, and then you come in here there and just get the doors beaten off you, it's just, the vibes are off. It's just not great.
Yeah, this was a clunker tonight. Couple clunkers in this losing streak. I don't think they've all been the pitcher's fault, though. I think the offense is largely to blame. We'll get into some of the non-producers for the Twins offensively, how they can come out of this 7-game losing skid where they've scored no more than 4 runs in any game. That's next on the Locked On Twins postcast. We're presented tonight by Policy Genius, the country's leading online insurance marketplace, which saves you time and money so you can provide for your family with a financial safety net. Starting today with Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. They help you compare your options from top companies and their team of licensed experts and on hand to help talk you through it. It's nice to have that personal touch when you're dealing with something as important as insurance. And you might not be as well covered as you think right now. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head there now, policygenius.com/lockedonmlb, or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much time you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. We are also presented tonight by Yahoo Finance. I love using Yahoo Finance. It is incredibly useful to me when I'm dealing with my investments. You want to start your retirement accounts when you're young. Yahoo Finance can help you with that. Consolidate your views with multiple accounts in one hub, and you have access to expert analysis. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're seasoned or, like me, you needed some extra guidance when you started out, Yahoo Finance will give you all the tools and data you need in one place. The number one finance destination, providing a holistic look at the financial news cycles. You can get access to all of it at Yahoo Finance, yahoofinance.com, a community of over 90 million monthly users. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Twins losing streak hits 7. They lose by 9. Big picture, they won 17 out of 20. Now they've lost 7. So that's 17 out of 27. You would still take that stretch. You would still take 17-10 over 27 games. They're above 500. Unfortunately, the progress they made, and especially when you get swept by Cleveland, who you're chasing, the progress they made has largely been wiped out. They're now 6.5 games back in the AL Central. Cleveland's record looking gaudy all of a sudden again, 31-17. And Kansas City, plucky, not going away, 29-19. They're 2 games back. Twins sitting in third. And the offense feels like a problem. We saw the worst of them early, then we saw the best of them. And it's almost like this is the tiebreaker. It's like this stretch is proving that the mirage was when they burst out of their slump and they had all those 10-run outputs. And the reality is that they're more like they were early in the season. Would you dispute that? Do you think this is actually a more real concern that the offense is not going to wake up?
Well, and here's the thing is, like mentioned earlier, they played the Mariners, they played the Red Sox. Those were 2 of the teams with 2 of the best starting pitching staffs in baseball, and the Twins knocked them around. So it's not just that the Twins kind of piled, and I'm not saying you said this, but it's not saying that the Twins piled up all these runs against the White Sox and against the Angels and some of this stuff, but it felt like that part made it feel real in a way of like, oh, they're doing this against some really good teams, and this was always going to be a tough month on the schedule. But like you talked about, I mean, just when the highest run total in your last 7 games is 4, it's just taking you out of ball games. It's not just that the Twins aren't scoring runs. They're not hanging up crooked numbers and they're not scoring early. The Twins had a 2-run home run from Carlos Correa. The game was 7-1. You lost at that point. That home run is nice. Like, it's good that Correa's hitting the ball, but in the winning the game scheme, it does nothing for you in that sense. And what's concerning about the Twins is that, early in the season it was sliders. Everybody was talking about the Twins couldn't hit sliders. Well, they figured out how in the stretch. They kind of went from bottom of the barrel to about league average, at least picked themselves up enough, and they still crushed the fastball. They don't get a ton of fastballs, but they crushed them. The Twins, in this 7-game stretch against the fastball, according to Fangraphs, they have like a value for how well an offense does against a pitch. The Twins are -5.5. And, whether you know the metric or not, negative something is just not great. And that's what's concerning, is the fact that, they've backslid a little bit against the sliders, But now, even when they get a fastball, they're not able to crush that mistake. And their exit velocities kind of stayed the same throughout the season. It's pretty much been roughly a little bit above league average, kind of in that ballpark. It's not like they've just been lining the ball all over the place. But again, when you're not hitting fastballs, if for a regular hitter for a whole offense, when you can't do that, it's just not a great sign.
No, it's not. CJ, do you have any particular scapegoats in the lineup that in your eyes have really not carried their weight during this stretch? Buxton, obviously, his second start since returning, got another hit tonight, not necessarily making his presence felt. I mean, it feels like they just need Royce Lewis back in the mix in the worst way. But who do you feel like is kind of one of the scapegoats of this 7-game skid?
I don't know. It feels like it's kind of a total team effort. Like when your offense only puts up 4 runs, that's a highlight for your team. It kind of just feels like everybody has backslid really, really bad, especially when they were doing well. It was everybody that was contributing. And now all of a sudden everybody feels like a step down their tracks. I'm copping out a little bit on this answer, but it just feels like nobody in this offense has looked comfortable at the plate. It feels like nobody in this offense has been looking good or just been able to really put good at bats together in this last week.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, Correa with a bomb tonight. He's hitting 267. I don't look to him. Jeffers hitting 262. I don't look to him. Even like a Santana who's hitting 201. He did so much during that winning streak from a power standpoint, from a timely hitting standpoint. I don't really look to him either. It's just the timely hits aren't there. Stringing together hits isn't there. They don't have a lot of pop right now. I mean, I don't know if you know top of head where they rank in slugging and home runs, but I think the justification for the bad average and the strikeouts, it was always, well, we're going to sacrifice that for home run, percentage. And that hasn't been present at all during this stretch. And it wasn't present early in the season. So now we've seen over, 47 games, this Twins team, for about 25 of them, they've kind of been a feeble offensive product. So I think we're not really in the settling into the season anymore. We are past the quarter pole. We are into Q2, right? I mean, the financial reports are coming in, and on Yahoo Finance, maybe, and the Twins are not really showing an upward trajectory. 24-23 their record, which probably feels about right for what they deserve if you average out the way they played over this first quarter and change. I got a couple fun nuggets for you. A former Twins update on, speaking of feeble hitters, Joey Gallo, and in this season, Eddie Rosario as well. That's coming up on the Twins postcast. Having a little bit of graphics difficulty, but that's okay. I'll tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is one of the best sources for a small business that needs to discover its way for finding qualified professionals. I may have completely lost my signal at this point, and CJ might be having to tap dance for me, which is really unfortunate. All right. I think a catastrophic internet loss there. CJ, are you with me?
I'm right here. Yeah.
You're there. There's CJ. Had to just sit there and wait for me. He can still hear me. I was trying to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs, great place for small businesses to find quality professionals. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Get a 60-day free trial, linkedin.com/lockedon. All right. Barring any more internet tomfoolery, we try to tell you about Joey Gallo, old friend Joey Gallo. CJ, do you want to hazard a guess what he was hitting coming into tonight's game for Washington? We got to get a laugh out of this somehow.
Okay, well, it's Joey Gallo and it's batting average, so there's no way it's above 150. I'm going to say it's somewhere around, I'm going to go 120.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. He was hitting 125 entering play tonight. He was 11 of 85, and he had all of 2 singles on the year. So what do you know? He picked up his 3rd single of the year tonight to go with his 3 doubles and 6 home runs, or 6 doubles and 3 home runs? Either way, the Joey Gallo experience is fully immersed in Washington right now. And another old friend, Eddie Rosario, playing for Washington, not doing that much better. I know he won the breakup initially with the Twins. He got the World Series under his belt. He was the cult hero in Atlanta. He's hitting 180 with a 246 OBP. Tonight, though, he gets the last laugh, drives in 3, goes 2 for 5, added a couple insurance runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. But what do you make of the paths of Gallo and Rosario, CJ?
I mean, Joey Gallo is just perfectly on brand for kind of the hitter he has become. And with Rosario, it's kind of it's so fascinating because, like you talked about, most Twins fans, kind of forgot about him. And then when they remember him, they're like, oh, yeah, he won the World Series with Atlanta. And then it's kind of bounced around a little bit and found his stay in Washington. And like you talked about, now really played very well. And in typical Eddie Rosario fashion and Joey Gallo fashion anyway, but Eddie Rosario has just always been a very boomer bust player anyways. And of course, the time he booms for the first time, it really feels like this season, is against the Minnesota Twins. And when you have Gallo hitting a single and when you have Eddie Rosario doing a 3 RBI game, it's kind of like Rudy Gobert hitting a turnaround shot, isn't it? Like when that happens, you just know your team's not winning today.
That's a good callback to last night's Wolves win. Gobert. Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. That
Maybe
brought
we
a
should
smile.
talk about them instead.
Yeah, I think we should. That brought a smile to my face. The Twins didn't. The Wolves won Game 7. The Twins have lost 7 in a row. And by the way, Washington had lost 5 in a row coming in, and the Twins were fairly heavy favorites in this game. They fall behind 7-1, never recover. Pablo Lopez shelled. Looking ahead to tomorrow, Twins play 5:45 against the Nats. It is Joe Ryan against Patrick Corbin on the bump. Early thoughts on tomorrow's game. The Twins are favored at -155 at FanDuel.
So, yeah, I mean, when you're playing Patrick Corbin in 2024, it really feels like that's a game you got to win. I haven't looked at Patrick Corbin's numbers particularly closely in 2024, but I mean, he's on the roster because his contract is an albatross and the Nationals still aren't winning yet. So if the Twins don't get some revival in that offense based off of Patrick Corbin, things are going to be pretty bad. And, even in 2023 and this year, the Twins have a habit of finding a pitcher that's washed and not really playing particularly well. And all of a sudden he kind of finds a little bit of life. So there's the danger of that, but this is a good opportunity for the Twins to snap that streak because Patrick Corbin is not good. And you have your second best pitcher on the mound in Ryan.
5.59 ERA this year for Corbin. This again, Ryan, he's your number 2. Now he's got to be your stopper. Pablo wasn't tonight. One last item, hopefully to make you smile a little bit. How about Denard Span in the booth making the home run call on the Carlos Correa jack? They have not had a lot to be happy about, Provis and his partner in the booth the last 7 games. But Span, who's been, I think, refreshing as kind of the new color analyst on the block with Provis, I thought he was entertaining, called the home run. That was great. I love that vibe. That was cool.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It makes me feel old because I remember watching Denard Span come up in his rookie year in 2008 and watching him kind of burst onto the scene. But it's really cool to see him in the booth. He did really well. And like you talked about, got to do that call and had that home run. And it's really fun too. And you saw it a little bit. I'm trying to remember some of the other broadcasters throughout the season. But when you have some of these guys who have played in some of these ballparks a lot, like Trevor Plouffe when they were in Chicago, or maybe it is Denard Span who played in Washington for a few years. it really feels like that adds an extra layer to the broadcast too, because not only does Denard Span know a lot about the Twins and know a lot about this and that and baseball, but now he knows a lot about the Nationals too and the ballpark and how it plays. And not a ton of that tonight because the game was whatever, but I've really liked the rotating panel that the Twins have had this season. And Denard Span has just been really, really fun, and it's cool to see him now kind of join that for the Twins this year.
Yeah, and I'll get on my soapbox too to end the show. Like as disenchanted as one might be with the Bally Comcast stuff, the people that are actually on the ground doing the work locally to make the broadcast happen are doing a fantastic job. I mean, the talent is great. The innovation to the broadcast, I think, has been really good. They're incorporating more technology, more stats. The play-by-plays have been terrific. They've had more and more creativity with how they've incorporated color analysts and three-man booths, and it's all good. It's all good. And that makes it all the more disappointing that you can't watch the games because they are doing a very good job in producing quality broadcasts. It's all about the distribution, and that's handled at a far, far higher level. So that's unfortunate. Fans might feel fortunate they haven't had to watch the last 7 games. Twins need to do a better job to try to reel them back in. Right now, the Timberwolves are kind of holding court right now, though, in this town. They'll be playing on Wednesday. We'll have the Locked On Wolves postcast after that game, our Locked On Twins postcast after most games as well. Luke Inman will be back in his usual post coming up soon. I'm Sam Ekstrom. That's CJ Baumgartner. Thanks for watching us live on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Sorry about the internet problems. And we appreciate you listening to us as well on the Locked On Twins podcast feed. Thanks a lot, CJ. We'll talk to you soon.